Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my Sunday live stream where we talk about photography and catch up with the community, see how everybody's doing. I hope everyone's doing well and it's not too late. I can still say Happy New Year, right? It's going to be a great 2024 and I look forward to what we're going to do together. And I hope you'll join me on my journey as try to improve my photography and help as many people as I can along the way. Um, See a few people here. Let's see, Palumbo and Jeff Painter. Good to see you guys. And last say, David Tellett. Saw you yesterday. Sorry I didn't see you off yesterday. You kind of vanished on me, or I vanished on you. Um, David Crooks. Good morning. I thought you'd be at Huntley Meadows today. And just let me know in the chat if my audio is okay today and the video and everything, because I know it's always an issue for me. I don't know why I can't get it down right. You'd think after 6 years, I'd have this down. Um, and let's see. Jeff has a question already. Let me see if I can show on stream. Okay, there we go. If you could only have one body and one lens, what would it be? Anyone else? Feel free to give your choice. Wow. I guess personally it'd be the Pen F and maybe even just the kit lens, 14 to 42 kit lens. Um, or the 12 to 45 Pro, I should say. Just something a little bit smaller than the 12 to 40 f2.8, like the 12 to 45 f4 Pro and a Pen F. I think that's a nice combo. That'll let me do the wide angle stuff that I like to do now, and also has, everything up to 90 millimeters if I want to get in closer. And also has a nice close-up focusing ability, so I can get very close-up shots. So it's a very, very versatile lens. So that's why I would pick that. And then the Pen F, of course, is, I think just a finely crafted device, right? Finely crafted work of art. It's very well made, quality design, excellent image quality, lots of nice little features. So there's lots of so much thought went into the Pen F and the design. Now internally, it has that creative dial, which is kind of fun to play with too. So that's kind of unique to the Pen F among all the other Olympus cameras. I think the Pen EPL7 also has that, but it doesn't have an EVF, so it'd have to be the Pen F with the 12 to 45 f4 Pro lens for me, if that's the only lens. Now, because I do this quote unquote for a living, um, it'd have to be the OM1, right? With the 8 to 25 f4. Then I could do my personal and my professional at the same time because I need super wide angle for my architectural work, and 25 millimeters is enough. That's a nifty 50, I think. So if it had to be one-on-one, that would be it. But thank goodness we don't have to do that, right? We can buy as much as our credit cards will allow. But that's where I'd be, because those are the OM1 is such a great camera. It does everything well. Handheld high-res shot mode I really enjoy. Live ND I want to get into more. Um, and then of course the awesome bird detect autofocus, which you can only really take advantage of with a long lens. So I guess that wouldn't count as why would I pick that as my only camera. But if I had to pick one to do both, it would have to be the OM1 for the uh, just all of and the battery life, right? Because I need the battery to last while I'm out on a job or I'm in the field. Um, but I really only need the wide angle for my pro work. I could even use the Pen F on my pro work, to be honest, or the M10 Mark II. But the OM1 with its, well, the Pen F has that too, actually. It has the 4 custom modes on the dial, right? Is it 4 or is it 3? It's 4. I mean, I only need 3, but it has 4. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the mode dial. I answered too soon. It'd probably be this with the 8 to 25 f4 Pro. If I wanted to do everything, right? Work professional and personal. But like I said, thank God we don't have to do that. Oh, you slept in this morning. I got up at like 4:30 in the morning. Ugh. 'Cause I want to get up at crack of dawn so I can go out so I can be somewhere by crack of dawn so the light starts to get better. I can get night shots done. I can get dawn and sunrise, right? I can do everything. And then by 8 o'clock, the sun's up high enough. It's basically good lighting, full sun. Um, you can do everything, and there's nobody out there, right? So um, it's quiet. People don't bother me. I don't bother people, I should say. And wow, David says, "Oh, I'm one and 150 to 400." Yeah, David's mostly wildlife, right? Um, I love shooting wildlife and doing birds and things, but that would be all I could do if I had a 150 to 400. So I would need a little more versatility, and we need to get prime really. Um, and Jan is here. John Thomas, good to see you. And Roberto, good to see you. I think I saw Robert up here earlier too. There's lots of people here from the photo club that I join. David Crook runs. We're having our annual party today too, so I look forward to that. And I'll call you after the stream, David. I want to see if there's anything I can do before to help you set up or something. Maybe I can get there a little early. Um, wow, the OM1 and a 90 macro. Wow. But if you're gonna have one lens, 90 is pretty limiting, but hey, to each his own, right? Um, OM1 and 12 to 100. Yep, that's an excellent choice. That's an excellent choice. And have I ever tested some Pentax DSLRs? If so, yes, I have. I own a Pentax SR10, oldie but a goodie. Has the original CCD, I think it's a 10 megapixel CCD sensor. And being CCD in and of itself doesn't make it special, but what makes it special was that they engineered it to have Kodak film-like colors. So in the processing side, they worked hard, and I haven't taken it out in years, though. It's probably been about 3 years. I should take that out again. I was thinking about getting another Pentax, and uh, I just spent so much money though on these other cameras that I don't know why. I kind of know why, but I don't know why. Uh, oh, okay. All right. I'll get there early. I think you're starting. I'll double check the time. I'll double check. Um, but yeah, I'll get there. I'll get there a little early. Um, if you don't do birding, would you recommend the OM1 or the EM1 Mark III if I was trying to jump into them? Definitely the OM1. OM1 has the bird detect. The EM1 Mark III does not. Now, that's not to say the M1 Mark III is not a competent camera, and you can get a really good hit rate. But I read the question wrong again. I did this last week. I'm sorry. Also, for Farva says, if I don't do birding, would you recommend the OM1 or the M1 Mark III? If I was trying, then I would say that's a tough call. I would get the M1 Mark III uh, if you need to save money. If you don't need to save like 800, $1,000, whatever the price difference is, get the OM1. Specifically because it has a better EVF and, in my opinion, better autofocus. I know Robin and I would disagree on that, but in my opinion, better autofocus overall, particularly the face detect. Unless you're sure, I don't know why Robin is having such a hard time with it, and it's not him, right? It's definitely the OM1, but the kind of conditions he's shooting in, I just have not run into personally. I mean, I know it struggles sometimes, but anyway, uh, I think I think Robin's situation is a little bit unique. If you're going to be shooting like Robin does in low light concert theater type situations, maybe not. The M1 Mark III might be better, but for everything else, money no object, all in one. Because it has the better EVF and the better face detect, better autofocus overall, in my opinion, um, and better image quality. Uh, because and this is something that you don't really see much, but the images are just a little better. I doubt they're two stops. I doubt it's even a full stop difference when you're editing. But if you're editing high ISO noise images and then you do the post processing denoise AI, they do come out cleaner, just a little bit more than the previous sensor. Another significant difference on the OM1 is long exposure. Like if you're doing 10, 15-second exposures, maybe even 8 seconds, or you're doing 1, 2, 3 minute exposures, it has significantly less noise on very long exposures. Um, and that's something I should do a video on and demonstrate. But for those of you that have both, right, the OM1 and a previous generation 20 megapixel sensor, run, take two pictures, 10 seconds each on each camera with the noise reduction turned off, and you'll see the OM1 is much, much cleaner. Um, and I noticed this first when I was doing time lapses last year. I started, I did some time lapse. I did them all the time before, not all the time, but I did them time to time. But I did some on the OM1 side by side with my EM5 Mark III, and I had exposures going up to 8 seconds on my time lapses, and the images were so much cleaner on the OM1. The EM5 Mark III had all kinds of speckles and dots and dead pixels and things that are related to the heat generated when the sensor is capturing for that length of time. And I was like, oh, maybe my EM5 Mark III is not is failing, right? So I tried it on my Pen F and my EM10 Mark II, which is a much older camera, but they all do it, but the OM1 does not. So it was not my EM5 Mark III. It has something to do with the OM1 sensor has made some significant improvements in that respect. Um, so there's definitely some quality, and of course it has some incremental improvements in the live ND is another stop. The processing of the high-res shot mode is much faster, and and it's just a little bit snappier camera. And of course, the new menu system, I think a lot of people say it's more intuitive. It's all the same to me, to be honest. But yeah, you're that's what you're gaining with the OM1. That may not be worth it though, right? For a lot of people, like the EVF and the EM1 Mark III was fine. It's not an OLED, but it's fine. Uh, and the image quality, perfectly fine. If you're not doing 8-second, 1 minute exposures, or you employ the camera's internal noise reduction, where it takes blank shutter, a black frame where it subtracts the heat noise from the sensor. It'll give you just as good image quality as the OM1 in that respect, but you can't do that a lot of times with long exposure. Um, Battery life, IBIS, even the autofocus is really good. The face detect is really good on that. Not as good as the OM1 in my opinion, but it is really good. So you can save some money and put that money into a lens, right? Okay. Uh, Question is, yeah, search the OM1 on Robin Wong's channel. He's talked about it extensively. Uh, but essentially in low light, low contrast subjects. So when specifically, I think what he was referring to is he takes pictures of people, right, in theaters and not theaters, but stages, right, where the lighting is not always great on everybody, right? It's usually pretty good on the lead singer or the lead performer, but sometimes the people in the back are not quite as well lit. And he was said he was struggling. He said he could not get that thing to focus. And I followed up with a sort of quote unquote lab test to see if I could duplicate his results. And long story short, yeah, I was able to duplicate the problems Robin was having, where it was low light, low contrast, where the M5, and I have the M5 Mark III, I didn't have the same camera, but essentially the same autofocus and sensor, right? And I have my OM1, I'm sorry, yeah, and the OM1, and I compared them side by side on the same target, right? Focusing target. And in very, very low light, low contrast situations, the OM1 did not have a very good hit rate. But once the light levels start to rise a little bit and get to a certain level, whatever that number is, okay, and it's not long, it's still pretty dark, okay? But once the light levels get up, I found the OM1 had a higher hit rate and better focus than the M5 Mark III. It was just when the light levels just dropped at a certain point, then the OM1 almost went to zero to like almost not able to focus at all, whereas the M5 Mark III was able to focus. But once you got the light levels just up a little bit, then the OM1 outperformed. That was my finding. And yet that still was not good enough for the kind of shooting that Robin does. So uh, watch his video and see. I mean, and you can watch mine and see the results I got. And I put charts up and everything where I counted. Man, that was a lot of freaking work. But I put up everything. And like I said, in that video, I said, long story short, Robin is right. The OM1 does not focus as well as the EM1 Mark III or EM5 Mark III in my case in those situations. Uh, He did find the subject detect very reliable, right? Animal and bird detect. He really loved that. The autofocus on that, and I'm sure that in good light, he probably has no issue with the autofocusing on the OM1, but he's having issues in low light. Me personally, I'm not having any issues with low light performance. Um, and because I just don't shoot that in that low light, those kind of subjects or targets. It hasn't come up. I'll show you, let me show you an event that I just did last, well, 2 weeks now. Where is it? Maybe it's in here. Yeah. All right. See if I can share this without messing up here. So I did this Christmas party, And this was in somebody's house, right? Lighting was not great. Um, Let me see if there's info on this. What does that say? There's no EXIF data. I thought the EXIF data would be there. Now these are well lit because I was using flash, right? Um, but it's in a house at night, and the lighting's not great. Um, so I took probably 200 or 300 images that night of just these ladies, right? And I was not the hit rate, and I used all-in-one. The hit rate was awesome. I was nailing focus on everybody's face, shot after shot after shot, in a very dynamic situation at sometimes. Uh, so, um, and I've done other events like that in very low light where I didn't have any issues with the OM1 auto-focusing on people's faces. Uh, so if someone were to ask me, right, can you use the OM1 in low light situations? How is the autofocus? I would say it's fabulous because that has been my experience. Um, but definitely do your due diligence and see if anyone else has any issues with it, right? I'm not. Robin is Robin is adamant he's having issues with it. So uh, there you have it. Okay, so and I just wanted to show you my experience. It has been really good with the OM1, and of course the subject detect and everything has been awesome. Um, let's see. Okay, I got you, David. So we have to be fast. All right. Um, John Fowler says recently I had a Panasonic G9 II, but just could not get on with it, so it's gone. Ah, yeah, it's a big camera, right? Because I had the S5, which is identical. That's kind of big for a Micro Four Thirds. I'm not saying that's why you probably got rid of it, but for me, uh, I have an OM1, so feature-wise, I have everything I need, and even if the G1 is marginally or measurably better in every way, I still I still can't imagine doing any better than I am with the OM1. I was thinking about I still like to get the original G9, the Mark One. That's still on my short list of cameras to get. But I have some other cameras I'd rather get right now, but we'll see. Um, but I think yeah, I think the main thing with the G9 II for me is it wouldn't be an upgrade for me from my OM1. The two cameras are basically equivalent unless you want to do video. And for me, video, I just honestly I shoot in program mode a lot of times when I do video. I don't like to grade and do all of that anymore. I tried it for a while. I would shoot an OM log 400 to try to get that extra stop or two stops of dynamic range, and it just it just adds so much overhead to the workflow. It's not worth it for 99% of my photography or videography. Now for my paid work, I do record an OM log and I grade it. I don't, you know, just because I do shoot very high dynamic range scenes with the OM1, and having that 10-bit recording makes a big difference. And it's also now it's 4K 60. So the OM1 really fit everything I need. The G9 II certainly has better video capability, especially on the feature side. All the things that you would need to do if you get into videography, I think the G9 II just, blows it out of the water. Uh, but because a lot of people tout the video capabilities of the Fujifilm XH2 or 2S, whatever. I have the XH2. I'll never use any of the video stuff in that thing. I just put it on Provia and record in aperture priority sometimes, but usually just program mode with autofocus when I do video with it. Because what I like about the XH2 is um, I can plug a USB in and power it and record at the same time. Now the OM1 does that now too, but um, I've been using my Fuji to record some videos indoors for my vlogs, the videos that I make, because I have it. Why not try it? And a lot of times I need the OM1 to demonstrate what I want to show you in the vlog, right? So I can't use the OM1 to record if I need the OM1 to show you how to do things. So the Fuji's the only other camera I have. Well, the Sony now, but the Fuji's really the only other camera I have that's competent at video, and I can power it via USB at the same time as I'm recording. So, why am I talking about that anyway? Okay, let me move on. I forgot why I'm talking about that. Let's see. And Roger, good to see you. John Truman, always good to see you. And any thoughts on 2024 OM Systems new offering lenses or cameras? Um, I would like to see a new camera. Uh, I mean, I think there was a rumor that there's some high-end camera coming out, but let's just ignore that for now. I would love to see a new camera that for OM Systems that OM System is going to own, right? Because that is probably nearly 100% developed under the new OM System umbrella versus, the OM1 and EM5 Mark, or the OM5, I'm sorry, the OM1, OM5, these two cameras were in the pipeline already and just needed, you know, final touches and testing. That was sort of a mix between Olympus and OM Systems in terms of who is managing that project or that production. But I think at this point, 3 years on, this is something that OM System is going to own. So they're making a flagship camera potentially because they need it to be good, right? They need to make a splash with their first real camera that's really their own. Uh, and certainly, I'd like to see some more lenses in the f1.4 range. I doubt they're coming, but I'm starting to really like the Panasonic offerings, right? The 25 1.4. Oh man, I love that lens. I'm also looking at their 15 millimeter f1.7. I know it's not a 1.4, but man, that lens is really attractive. And they also have the 9 millimeter 1.7, the uh, at reasonable price, right? And the 12 millimeter f1.4. So they have some really really good glass. Uh, just slightly different. Like I like the 35 to 100 f2.8. If I did more event photography, like the images I just showed you, uh, I would get the 35 to 100 f2.8 over the 40 to 150 f2.8 because it's small, compact, excellent image quality. Um, I might even have to get a G9 too if I start getting a lot of Panasonic glass, right? Because I'm kind of missing the benefit of the dual sync between the lens and the body if I only use them on my Olympus cameras. But yeah, I would like to see more lenses, but I don't know what they have in the pipeline. They had talked about like a 50 to 200, uh, you know, telephoto lens. That would be okay. Something a little more than the 40 to 150 would be nice. If they have a 50 to 250 or 50 to 200, I would consider that. It would depend on the size though. If it's too big, I'm not going to get it. But if it's nice and compact, but excellent image, because the 40 to 150 f4 Pro, excellent image quality. But I have the 40 to 150 kit lens, which has excellent image quality. It's not a 40 to 150 Pro, but the problem is the 40 to 150 f4 is an f4. I'm at f4, f5.6 on my kit lens, so I don't need sharper images than I'm already getting. What I need is more light. I need an f2.8 lens, right? Uh, but software has mitigated that need a lot. You know, I can shoot at f4 and denoise it down to f2.8 levels, right? I can denoise any image a full stop easily with software, and usually 2-3 stops is no problem either. I mean, at some point you start to lose detail, right? You can't just denoise a 25,000K ISO image and expect to get the same level of detail. But certainly at up to ISO 6400, I am able to recover most of the detail to the point that it's good enough, right? But a faster lens would be nice. And sad the OM system has made no comment on this low light focus problem. Well, they probably don't think it's a problem. That's why they didn't comment on it. But you'll never see a company, I mean, it's probably happened, but why would a company admit that they have a problem with their camera? You know, like Sony. Oh my gosh. Every time I use that camera, I'm finding something weird, and makes me really appreciate OM systems, right? Olympus cameras and the features that they put in, the 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 workflow and everything of the Olympus cameras. They just have things in them. Like I use the intervalometer. I'm going to make a vlog on this, but there's an intervalometer feature on the ever since the M10 Mark II, which was my first Micro Four Thirds camera, and it autofocuses with every shot. If you have it set to continuous autofocus, um, and the Sony does not. It locks focus and then you're stuck. Ugh. I mean, it's a little thing, right? It's not a deal breaker. But like Columbo says, right? It's the little things that bother me. I can't eat. I can't sleep at night. Little insignificant details, right? That bother me. Again, shouldn't be deal breakers, but uh I'm just running into little things constantly. Like another thing is like if I adapt, let's see, and maybe I haven't gone through the manual enough, right? But like I'm trying to adapt my vintage 135 Nikon glass here. It's a fabulous lens, by the way. All the 135, the vintage ones are excellent. I can put in the focal length, but I can't put any EXIF data in, right? So when I load them into my computer, I have to use EXIF some software to add the EXIF data in for the lens. But on my OM1 and my Pen F, uh, and maybe the EM5 Mark III, I don't use that camera for like everyday stuff, but definitely the Pen F and the OM1, I can add the EXIF data of the lens, you know, uh, so when it's loaded in the computer, it tells me right there, I use the 135 millimeter Nikon f3.5. So little things, right? The little details. Um, And how do you like the Sony full frame versus the Panasonic full frame? I would say, because I had a Panasonic S5 and a Panasonic S1R, which I kind of regret selling. I really do. I wish I'd kept the S1R. And when the new S1R Mark II comes out, hopefully the S1R drops in price again. Right now it's selling for like 1,500 bucks all day long. If it can drop down to 1,200, I'm gonna buy it again. And then I have to buy all my L-mount glass again because I sold all my L-mount glass. That was a mistake. Um, so if I had to do it over again, I would I would have kept my S1R and not bought the Sony A7R5. Um, what I what I what I liked about the S1R was just the image quality, the high-res shot mode execution, the focus stacking. These features were much better implemented in the Panasonic camera. The Panasonic was just more intuitive to use, had more photography related type features that I felt it was just made for the enthusiast. The Sony, the problem with the Sony is all the little things, right? They just added focus stacking in the A7R5. It didn't exist before in previous Sony cameras. I mean, the color science, the images that I'm getting from the Sony, it's very, very subtle. Uh, but I'm not crazy about the colors. I fixed them in post, right? But when I took a picture with my Panasonics, whether it was the S1R or the S5, the colors that I got, I thought they were just gorgeous. I mean, it just had this saturation and tonality to it that were just beautiful. And the Sony, I don't feel that same sort of passion or emotion from the colors and the images that I'm getting from it. So I have to post process them, then I can get them there. Because you can post process anything, it's digital, right? But what do I like about the Sony? The 61 megapixels, it's not noticeably better than the 47 I was getting with my S1R, but it's significantly better than I'm getting with my 20 megapixel Olympus cameras. And that I like about it. So if you love super high resolution images, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter why, you just like high resolution, the Sony A7R5, man, when you put just about any lens on there and you get really amazing image quality out of it. The detail, the sharpness, uh, coming from that camera. And I would even argue the black and white tones that I get from it, which in theory translates in the color side as well, because really what is the black and white? It's just subtracting the color. But the gradations, and I guess that has to do with the 14-bit RAW, even though it's very difficult to duplicate these things, when you're shooting shot to shot to shot and comparing them side by side with other cameras, there you can definitely see you're able to kind of just pull a little bit more on the highlights and shadows. And you're able to like push the colors just a little bit this way or that way. So I think on the processing side, if you're going to process your raw images on the Sony is pretty hard to beat for image quality. Uh, and the usability is okay. I don't find the camera terribly comfortable to use. The ergonomics and all that. You can get used to anything. I much prefer OM1. That was the very best. The S1R was great, but it was heavy. The S5 I thought was pretty awful, to be honest. I didn't think the ergonomics on the S5 were good at all. It was just a brick in my hands. The Sony's sort of in between the OM1 and the S5. It's better than the S5, but it's not as good as the OM1, right? Kind of in between. Uh, so yeah, so I like the Sony for that resolution, and it's not going, shooting at 20 megapixels is not a deal breaker for me at all. So understand that, right? That I'm perfectly content with 20 megapixels. It's more than enough detail for me, but it's definitely a step up when you go to 60, right? So if you appreciate that extra 40 megapixels in an image, you get slightly better cropping ability. I mean, if you have to crop your images, you didn't take the picture right, in my opinion, but uh yeah. So definitely I can appreciate everything the Sony has to offer with respect to its high resolution sensor, uh its dynamic range, but that's it, you know. I'd rather have my S1R back, but I can't sell my Sony without losing a boatload of money. Probably lose more than I would spend on an S1R. Oh, anyway, that was a long answer. I hope that helps a little. What are the largest and smallest cameras you have? Uh, well, on the interchangeable lens side, it's my Pen PL8 is my smallest. Um, the biggest camera I have is probably the A7R5 or the XH2. One of those two, one is bigger than the other. They're almost exactly the same. We'll just call it a tie. The XH2 and the Sony A7R5 are about the same size. Those are my biggest ones that are digital interchangeable lens. The smallest one I have is a Canon. Oh my God, it's so tiny. Um, this thing. This is my Canon S100. This thing is so tiny. Um, and I think I forget how many megapixels this is. Has an 8x zoom, CCD sensor, really big screen for such a tiny camera, you know? Uh, and it only shoots JPEG, but it takes really nice pictures. I should take this out and shoot with it. Just it's kind of fun. This is my smallest camera. Uh, so there you have it. I can't think of anything smaller unless you count my dash cams and things like that, that I never use for photography, but uh at Roundtrack, when you had your XT30, how did you find the autofocus in low light? It was fine. I didn't notice any problems. I didn't shoot it much though. I think I had less than 2,000 clicks on it when I sold it. So I'm not really the right person to ask. I mean, in 3 years, like 2,000 clicks. That's it. The person that, yeah, anyway. The OM1 with the Sigma 16 to 1.4 is great for indoor photography. The lens is absolutely fabulous. Yes. I have the Sigma 56 1.4 for my Fuji. That is a halo lens for the Fuji. If you have a Fuji camera, you got to get that lens. It's amazing. Um, I'm tempted to get the six. I was tempted by the 16 1.4, but it's a little bit bulky, right? It's kind of big on the camera. That's why I'm looking at the 15 millimeter 1.7, getting a used one. I can get them for about 350. Uh, I'm torn though because I really like the 14 millimeter f2.5. It's so compact and lightweight. Um, but I want that f1.7. That's like a full stop difference in light. That's a big difference. On Micro Four Thirds, you want every stop you can get, and that's why I'm going. I hate losing that 1 millimeter. I know it's not much, and it's almost a deal breaker, believe it or not. But the trade-off is I get an extra stop of light. I will get the 15 millimeter, and then losing another millimeter at 16, and then I'm only gaining a half a stop, right? If I was at 16 1.2, I might consider it then, but at 1.4, it's not quite enough for me to make the leap from the Leica to the Sigma. Although I'm sure the Sigma is just as sharp, if not sharper than the 15 millimeter Leica, but I don't think the trade-off for the size and weight and the loss of another millimeter, it's so close to my 17 1.7 or one. I have the 17 1.8. That's what I'm using right now, actually, is the 17 1.8 for this stream. I don't know if yeah, the 16 1.4 is not quite enough for me to even consider trading because I'm gaining an extra millimeter and I'm gaining about a half a stop, but I'm also gaining size and weight, right? So it's kind of a weird lens for me because I prioritize size and weight first. That's what I always look for first when I look at lenses. And hello, Ulf. Good to see you. And let's see. Since we have the OM1, OM5, we are missing the OM10. Yeah, that's a tough call. Going back to what I think about 2024 cameras and lenses, I don't think OM10 is in the pipeline at all. It's great if they make one, right? But um, it's the OM10 is going to be marketed to people first-time camera buyers, right? And there is so much competition on that level. Never mind the smartphone market, right? Being being the target customer, because the target customer is buying smartphones or maybe they're buying their first camera. But you got the Canon R100, Canon R50, Canon. There's another Canon. You got like three entry-level Canon cameras between $600 and $800. And I know, I get it. The OM10 is going to outperform those cameras, but that's a tough market to break into at this point. You have the Nikon something 30, Z30 and Z50, well under $1,000 on those cameras with lenses. Now, if I recall, the EM10 Mark IV is selling new with a kit lens for 800 bucks. That's going to be a tough sell if they come out with an OM10 for 800 bucks and it's a Micro Four Thirds sensor. And unfortunately, Micro Four Thirds has that stigma, right, of being a small sensor camera compared to APS-C. Uh, so I I just don't. There has to be something. Has to be something very unique about the OM10 for somebody to recommend that over an APS-C camera at these price points. Um, I mean, I can talk about the IBIS and all the things that OM Olympus cameras do well, but to the first-time buyer, none of those things are deal breakers because you can say, "Oh, the OM10 is going to have this, that, and the other thing, better IBIS, better color science, and maybe it's going to have phase detect, so the autofocus is going to be pretty decent. It's going to have live comp. It's going to have focus stacking, whatever. It's going to have all these features that a lot of the competition just don't have, right? And if they do have it, it's not executed anywhere near as well. The execution of the features on the Olympus cameras are so good and so smooth and useful, um, that even though other camera companies can claim they have these features, the execution is very poor. But these are not things that a brand new camera buyer is going to appreciate. Um, they're just going to look at the specs, and then they're gonna have the sales rep there that knows less than the person buying the camera usually, uh, telling them, get APS-C or full frame, right? Because of that undeserved stigma of a small sensor camera. Um, I don't know. I don't know about the OM10. I think honestly they need to stay in the mid-range, upper range market. I don't think an OM10 is going to do Olympus or OM systems any good. They're not going to sell any. Um, Not with the competition the way it is. I mean, if they could sell one for $400, right? An OM10 for $400 and still be feature packed, then yeah, definitely. People will say, okay, you'll save a couple $100 if you get an OM10 and you'll get more features. That would be an awesome sell, right? But the way it is now, when you got APS-C cameras selling for 500-600 bucks, certainly under 1,000, OM10 would be a tough sell. And let's see. Somehow the chat scrolled up on me. Let me see. And then Dargo says, I was in the camera shop and I had a A100 Sony in my hand. Is that the old DSLR, the mirrored Sonys, the Alpha series? I was tempted by those back in the day. I don't remember the model numbers, but I assume that's what you're talking about, is one of those DSLR, because they didn't have an actual mirror, that mechanical mirror. It was fixed but translucent. So you lost a little bit of light, but then you didn't get the mirror slap. So it was basically a mirrorless camera. And I think it had an EVF. I don't think it even had an OVF, an optical viewfinder. I don't remember though. It's been a long time since I've looked at those. What advice would you give if someone that is going for fine art side of photography with regards to selling their art? I'm the wrong person to ask. What advice would you give? I can't give any advice. If I did, it would be bad advice or unqualified advice. Um, I'm not worthy. I'm not qualified to give advice on that. I'm sorry. Good morning from Alexandria, Virginia. Oh, so you're nearby. Awesome. You should come to the camera club. Virginia Belt, David Crook runs it. Virginia Beltway Meetup on meetup.com. I recently picked up the Pen EP5 and some lenses for local estate auction, especially enjoying the 12 f2 and the 20mm f1.7 that came in yeah, those are both awesome lenses, and EP5 is a great, great camera. Um, Lucky you. I would love to get get a deal on something like that. And I sold my 12mm f2 because I just didn't use it. I have the 12 to 40 f4 Pro and I have the 12 to 32 kit lens. and I just didn't need the f2 that wide at that wide of an angle, right? Or so I thought at the time, so I got rid of it. And now I'm kind of wishing I had it back. The 12 millimeter f2 is so sharp, and at f2 it's really fast, so you can go into low light situations um, and get great images from it. Want to say that your self portraits and Instagram are coming out. Oh, thank you, Vic. I try. Hopefully they'll get better. I'm sort of in that learning phase right now of uh, finding a look and feel for my self portraits. It's going to get there, and eventually I'm going to start doing other people, taking portraits of other other models, so to speak. Like that Christmas party I went to, there was a lot of ladies there, and they are lining up for me to take their picture. I'm like, okay, I can do that. Um, but thank you, Vic. I appreciate it. Sony has a successful range of rangefinder cameras, so OM system follow that trend is a new pen. I think so. You know, the pen series I thought was such an awesome line from Olympus. The Pen F being sort of the pinnacle of that, right? If they were to come out with an awesome line of compact pancake quality lenses, like the 15 millimeter 1.7, the 14 millimeter 2.5, the 20 millimeter 1.7 from Panasonic, these pancake lenses, if Olympus could do that, or OM Systems with something like the size of the GX85 from Panasonic, and this may be the problem, right? Panasonic had the GX85 with the 12 to 32 very compact system, and yet we have not seen one of those. Based on the pricing I'm seeing, they must be selling really well. So it might be time to come out with a Pen F2, but launch it with some pancake lenses like this. The Power Zoom, I have this rubber hood on it. Let me take this off. But this is pretty compact, right? 14 to 42 power zoom on my Pen F. And I got this big ass grip because I was using a tripod last night. I don't use this grip all the time, but uh, this this is a pretty compact system, but it might have been too early, right, for it. And people weren't just into retro cameras like they are now, like the Nikon ZF, the X100V's been around forever. Um, Fuji somehow they've just nailed the retro um, market, right? They know what people want. I personally don't want. Excuse me. I personally don't want those dials like the ZF has shutter speed, ISO, whatever, and then aperture on the lens sometimes, like Fuji does. I don't want that on my camera. I want a standard, you know, PSAM dial, PASM or whatever. Because you can program the dials to be aperture, shutter speed, ISO, whatever. Just the way my brain works. I don't like them hard, I don't like the hard physical dials dedicated to those functions. So that's why the XT5 didn't appeal to me when I was looking at Fujifilm. So I went with the XH2, which has the regular PSAM dial. Um, Now I'm thinking about an XT3 because I really, God, why is my voice correct? I really think that the design of the XT3, XT4, XT5 in silver, my God, that's a gorgeous camera. It's so nice looking. So maybe once the XT3 prices come down a little bit, a little bit more, they're still asking like 800 bucks for those things. If they can come down a little bit more, like 4 or 500 range, I might get me an XT3. Because I think it's a beautiful camera like the Pen F, and it's certainly a capable camera. Uh, but anyway, yeah, you'd like to see an update. Yeah, me too. I would love it. I just hope that I lost my train of thought. If they do come out with the Pen F2, I hope it sells well. I hope it does well. It's a little unpredictable because it's not going to be cheap, right? Just like the X100V, it's kind of expensive for what it is. And the Pen F is going to be the same way. It's going to be expensive for what it is. When you look at the spec sheets, nobody's going to be impressed probably. But um, I didn't buy the Pen F because of its specs. I bought it because I thought it was a beautiful camera. It was a total vanity purchase. And I would buy a Pen F2 for the same reason. Um, Fine Art America, I guess Etsy is another place you could sell your prints, right? Uh, there's a guy on YouTube that says he does pretty well with Etsy. I forget his name, but what he said, keywording is very important. The keywords that you use on Etsy for people to find your work, and then his sales went up quite a bit after because when he first listed the images, he put every keyword imaginable in there, and his listings were getting buried, right? But when he was very specific on the keywords for the listing, people were finding his work that wanted to buy it, right? Because if you're searching for, let's say snowy landscape mountain, snowy mountain landscape, and you put a keyword in there, landscape, without that description, right? Um, your listing is going to be buried. If you put in snowy landscape, your listing is going to be a little bit higher when somebody searches for that, right? And then if you get more specific, which mountain, right, was it that you took a picture of? So if somebody's searching for Colorado Rockies snowy mountain landscape, if somebody searches for that and those are your keywords in your listing, you're going to come right up to the top, right? Or near the top because your keywording matches exactly what people were searching for. And if you show them exactly what they were searching for, they're more likely to buy it. So if you're thinking about selling your prints, or selling your photography, I should say, I heard Etsy is well, this guy said he's doing well on Etsy. And then Xmedia says, yes, 12-bit versus 14-bit. I see that all-time processing 16 megapixel raw images from the EPL6 versus 16 megapixel from the Pentax K5 or 24 from the K3. Something a little extra you can use from those Pentax RAWs. Okay. Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is because it's 14-bit on the Sony. Um, what I heard about 14-bit was that the extra 2 bits is going into the shadow detail, and you're not able to really recover those anyway. You're just recovering noise if you are able to recover things. There was an article on DP Review about it, but with my own eyes, when I take a picture, I can see a difference. I think that 14-bit carries across the entire color spectrum, right? So instead of having 256 colors, right, you have 1,000 colors. And then if you go to 14-bit, you have 16,000 colors. You know what I mean? It scales up. So you have 16,000 shades of yellow, 16,000 shades of red, instead of, say, 256 shades. right? I don't know the exact math, but I'm just spitballing it, right? When you go from 8-bit to 10-bit to 12-bit to 14-bit, there's a logarithmic, it like jumps the number of colors you can get per channel, red, green, and blue. And then when you blend those back together, you get less banding, less gradations, uh, better tonality, yada yada. Yeah, the Canon S100 shoots RAW. No, this one does not. All right. If you're talking about this one, I've never seen a RAW image from this thing. White balance, let's see, program mode, exposure bracketing, self-timer, focus limiter. Wow, this has everything. Okay, shutter modes. So recording pixels. So this is 20 megapixels. So I have large, medium, 10 megapixels, small is 3 megapixel, and then 640 by 480, and then widescreen. Okay, so that's that. Let's go into the menu. I'll look it up, but I never saw. Time, date, eco. I don't see anything in here to let me shoot in RAW. But I'll look. If you say it does, it probably does. I don't know. I'm sorry, this is not the S100. This is the ELF 180. PowerShot ELF 180. So maybe that's the difference. Okay. I'll look anyway. It's not the S100. I do have an S100, but it's old. It's not even worthy of my shelf. I have two S100s that are really old that I bought like in the early 2000s. They're like 2 megapixel cameras. I know they don't shoot RAW. And David says the OM10 is rumored. Okay. I think it'd be a mistake. And I've ordered the Olympus Stylus XC2 yesterday to play. Yeah, that's a cool little I have one. That's a cool little camera. It takes great pictures. It's a great camera. It really is. And then something over the OM1. Okay. Pen F2. That would be a better camera than an OM1 in my opinion. They need it. They need it. They need a Pen F2. And then the challenge as well with the OM10 will be limited market share, scale, managing design costs, keeping the price point on. Yeah, that's what I mean. Is how are they going to get it under $700 with lens? I mean, it's hard. And then compete against everything else out there. I don't think they can do it. But they can create something that nobody else is creating. Just like Fuji has the X100V, you can't do that in any other camera system, right? Nobody else has one that I'm aware of. I mean, the GR3X is close, uh, but it doesn't have an EVF. So the X100 is really that's what Olympus needs to do. I think is find something that nobody else is doing. So a Pen F2 could be like the X100V, but with an interchangeable lens. I guess that it would compete against the XE4 or the X Pro, but the Pen F would be smaller than the X Pro, probably same size as an XE4. But did the XE4 have it? Yeah, it had a viewfinder, I think, but Some reason, the XE4 I don't think sold well for Fuji. So I shot some, but not a lot of moon photography. Still learning. I have the 70 to 300 4/3 lens. Is the 100 to 400 MFT worth picking up if I can get a good used price? Yes, it's awesome. It's huge though, right? Uh, it's better than the 75 to 300. So if you prioritize image quality over size and weight, get the 100 to 400. If you prioritize size and weight over image quality, get the 75 to 300 because it's pretty close. It's pretty close, but it doesn't have the reach, and it's not quite as fast. I think it's a little bit slower on the long end, but 100 to 400 is about as good as you can get without buying a 300 f4 Pro. Um, Also consider the 100 to 400 from Panasonic. Um, I've seen some amazing images from that, and I believe it is a little bit smaller and lighter than the 100 to 400 from Olympus. When I bought the EP7, I thought I had 20 megapixel sensor per million, but I had the sensor from the Pen F. That was strange on a new model. That is strange. I didn't know they had the same sensor. I mean, ultimately, they're all the same, the sensors, not the OM1, but all the other 20 megapixel sensors. The only real difference is the layering on top of the autofocusing system, and maybe the micro lenses, whatever. But the sensor itself is virtually identical with just some very minor changes. So maybe there was just enough differences in the Pen F sensor that to use the special features that the Pen F has, they needed to use the same sensor. Uh, because yeah, that's probably it. Is the software, the firmware and stuff in the EP7 is almost identical, if not identical, to the Pen F. So I guess to keep research and development costs low, they said, okay, let's use all the same hardware inside, and we won't have to tweak the software at all if we're using the same sensor. So it's probably a cost savings thing. And you wouldn't benefit from an EM1 sensor over a Pen F sensor, really, other than maybe autofocus. The autofocus on the Pen F is the worst of all the Olympus cameras I have. The worst. It's not terrible. It works well, but it's not as good as any other Olympus camera I have. I know that. And C Trekkie says, "Hi Rob from Athens, Greece. I recently swapped the Panasonic G90 with a 12 to 60 Leica and 17 1.8 for the Nikon Z5 24 to 70 and 40 to f2. Mixed feelings." Yeah, I, I I know how you feel. In a way, because rarely do I get rid of cameras. I usually just keep piling on. Uh, but when I did get rid of a camera, I miss it. Like I miss my GX85. I miss my Panasonic S5, my S1R. Um, if I got rid of my Sony NEX6, my very first digital camera, interchangeable lens digital camera, I would miss it, even though it's a piece of crap, relatively speaking. It doesn't autofocus well, the colors are terrible, but I would miss that camera. Um, but take heart in that the Z5 with those lenses are excellent. You're going to get excellent image quality, and I think you'll enjoy it. I know it's a slightly heavier system, even though on paper these things look like they're the same size and weight. But when you handle a Micro Four Thirds camera, it definitely feels smaller and lighter, regardless of what I see, in on a scale. Like my God, when I pick up this Sony, This thing just is so freaking heavy. Um, when I got the lens attached to it. But you take off the base plate I have, you take off the lens. On paper, it looks like it's not that much bigger or heavier than, say, an OM1. But in practice, when because I add base plates to everything, you know, in practice, when I actually start to use the camera, put lenses on it, and put my base plate on it, and my strap and different lenses, it's like in practice, Micro Four Thirds is just a smaller, lighter system. Xmedia says the trend of retro cam has switched a bit recently into old digicams. Huge amount of youngsters on Instagram are taking pics with 15 to 20-year-old compact cameras just to get that image look. Yeah. Meaning they're out of focus all the time, right? Because autofocusing on those old cameras were terrible. Yeah, so maybe these young guys and gals will stick with proper cameras later. You would hope. Any idea I could get an EP7 at a reasonable price? I've looked at MPB and eBay, but I'm having no luck. I don't mind buying used. Uh, I don't know. Reasonable is kind of a subjective term. Let me see what they're selling for. Olympus EP7. So, um, 700 on 700 on MPB, excellent condition. And this is 576 with a lens, assuming that's a buy it now price. Let's look at this one. Map camera, so you have to import from Japan. This looks like a good deal. And how much is shipping? Free shipping. That's a good deal right there. Yeah. So Sammy's camera, if you're looking in the USA, oh, that's an EPL7, sorry. EPL7, EP7, $500 on eBay. Let me see. Map camera is pretty reliable, I think. There's another one from Map. So I think that's pretty reasonable. If you're trying to get it for 300 or 400, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. But $500 is not bad. Okay, so I see. You're saying that the EP7 isn't worth more than 300. Okay. Um, Earlier 2000 should be S80, S90. No, they're definitely S100s. Let me go get them. He was talking about my Canons. All right. So this is my, oops, sorry, S100, right? So me put my glasses on. Oh, this is an S400. God, my memory is so bad. This is a 4 megapixel S400 power shot. And I don't see a manufacturer date. Believe it or not, this used SD card or compact flash. Wow, there's a compact flash card in here. I wonder if there's any pictures on it. 512 meg. Look at this. Look at the size of this compact flash card relative to this camera. It's so I have an S400. Okay, here's my S100. Um, and this one also does not have the manufacturer date. This took great pictures. Both of these did. Look how tiny the screens are on these relative to like this one, right? So this is the S100 from whenever, early 2000s. It's quite a bit of difference in size here. This is a 2 megapixel. This guy's 2 megapixels. This one's 4. I probably thought that was a big deal back in the day. And I have to buy new batteries for those because they are long dead. This one is new, so it's fine. Okay. I appreciate you guys correcting me on all this because my memory is just really bad. Let's see. In the USA, are there specific laws for street shooting per state? I don't think so. I think there's certainly different laws on public property, like government owned, right? Like state parks and things. There might be some different because there's definitely you can't fly drones on most state parks or most national parks. And state parks have different rules a lot of times. Some state parks, I can shoot, I can bring my whole setup, my lighting gear and everything, and shoot as long as I'm not getting in anybody's way. Other state parks, you have to get a permit. Sometimes you have to pay a fee. So there's different laws in that respect. But I think, street shooting, if somebody's in a public space, just walking on the street and there's no expectation of privacy, yeah, you're pretty much free to shoot whatever you want. But I'm no expert on it, so don't quote me on all that. But generally speaking, the rule of thumb is if they're in a public space with no expectation of privacy, they're walking on a sidewalk down the city, yeah, you can do whatever, take their picture, you know. But state to state, the laws are going to be different uh, at state parks. I know that. And oh, thank you. Thank you. What's BK8PA? Thank you. And awesome self-portrait. Thank you very much. Um, I think the EP7 is an EM10 Mark IV without the uh, EVF. I guess you mean it probably is to some extent, but it's also it has that creative dial on it, right? Let me look at it again. It has yeah, it has that creative dial on the bottom, and it has those features in the you can do vignetting, you can do color saturation per color, uh, highlight, shadow, midtones. Well, the EM10 probably does that, but Yeah, the EP7 is just a little bit more uh, in terms of JPEG processing. Not much more. You can do it all in Olympus Workspace, right? And then new OM menu system at 4.99 or less, and big with TikTok, etc. influencer campaign asking a lot. Yeah, yeah, 4.99. That would probably sell though. I guarantee that would sell. They're not going to sell at 700 $700. There's just too much competition. And yeah, this is where Asgard said the EP7 isn't worth more than 300. Um, for me, I would pay 500 for it. Uh, but 300 would be better. I agree. Just wish the megapixel count was at 20.3. It's not a 20 mega. Yeah, it's a 20 megapixel sensor. I'm not sure if you're talking about the EP7. I thought for sure. Let me check. 5.1, so 5 by 4. Yeah, it's a 20 megapixel sensor, 4K recording. That's something actually it does that the Pen F does not. It does 4K. Let's see. And you have the EP5. Oh, I see. You wished your EP5 was 20 megapixel. Yeah. You're not missing much though. 16 to 20. I shoot with my EM5 Mark II all the time, and I don't I don't miss the 20 megapixels at all. And you've been watching for 8 years? Oh my goodness. I appreciate that. We've come a long way, right? Has it been 8 years? 2016. Yeah, it's going. I think this will be the eighth year. And it's not your memory is bad. You have so many cameras, and then you can't possibly remember everything. You have to concept down pat, and that's what matters. Oh, thanks. I try. Um, Next media said I had a tiny Casio QR 4 megapixel 2004, which was my first AF, was quite fast and accurate. I like that camera a lot, but shutter died after 30. Really? Recently got another that works for $5. Oh man. Can't beat that. $5 camera? You can't even buy coffee for $5. Phew. And you've helped me a lot and a lot of other people. Yeah, I try. I'm just one photographer trying to help another. And as I go out and take photos and stuff, and if I learn something, I try to share it. If somebody has a question, I try to answer it. There's a couple questions still in the comment sections that are like a month old that I haven't gotten to yet. I've gotten to most of them, the low hanging fruit, right? But there's a couple that I ran into. Somebody had asked me like a month ago about why does the viewfinder not change, right? When he's shooting in uh, change, meaning reflect the exposure. And that's a short answer, and I have videos on that. But he had very specific conditions that I'm trying to duplicate. Uh, because the conditions he described, I don't think he should be having that problem. So he or she, I'm not sure who they are, but uh, my guess, they're shooting basically very bright light. Okay, so I'm thinking that's the issue. So their shutter speeds at like 1/8,000th of a second. So I need to experiment a bit more, and I haven't taken the time to do that to address this specific question because I've been doing these self portraits. But the problem they're having in more extreme conditions, right? Because the EVF is not going to reflect the correct exposure if there's too little light or there's too much light. Uh, your camera's going to try to do it, but it just can't. It just can't. If it's too bright or too dark, it cannot show you the correct exposure. But I'm trying to duplicate it, uh, the exact conditions, and then I can explain it a little better what the problem is. But the short answer is I could leave a short answer comment for them, right, and say it's just too bright. right? That doesn't help anybody at all, you know? But that is the answer. They're shooting and the conditions are just too bright that the EVF's not going to give you the proper exposure. Um, but if I can explain it in a way that, sort of details why that is the case, then then you can understand how your camera works. Therefore, you'll understand how other cameras work because the Olympus is not the only one with this problem. If it's too bright or too dark, regardless of digital camera, it has limits. It's not going to be able to show you the exposure when it's too bright out or too dark. It's going to have to try to extrapolate and do the best it can, but it's not going to be accurate. And another problem people have a lot is uh, what they see in the EVF or live view is usually brighter than what they see on their computer. Um, and that's usually because most people's monitors are set too bright for photography. Photography, most computer monitors are set for, media, HDR, text, these kind of things, right? Office productivity or media consumption, i.e., movies, but not photography. Photographers have to calibrate their monitors to a certain brightness and also the colors. The colors are close enough usually, but if you're really critical, you need to calibrate your colors and your brightness on your monitor and calibrate your EVF and your live view, the brightness on it to match once you have your monitor set. And that's very difficult to do. So, the rule of thumb is what you see in your EVF and live view is never really what you see when you get it home and put it on your computer. The only exception is that S1R, that thing was really close. When I looked at the images on my S1R through the EVF and then I put them on my computer, they were close. I mean, I missed that camera. Anyway, um, your video tutorials are really the best for anyone learning. Oh, thank you. Yeah, when it's just like everything, right? If people connect with the way I teach, then it's great, right? Because I've gotten comments where I'm too slow and just they can't sit there for 30 minutes and watch a video. They want a 2-minute clip. Yeah, I'm not the right person, right? um, and that's fine. Everybody learns differently or consumes information differently, and you never know what level somebody is at, right? And that's the problem when I used to teach classes was, you would get everybody to come in. I put in the description of the class. This is for beginners. The only prerequisite is that you know how to use the shutter on your camera. Something as simple as that, or I might put in prerequisites. You need to understand the base exposure, right? What exposure is, aperture, shutter speed, priority. So this is more of an intermediate class, you know. Um, but you still get people coming in from all different levels. So you don't know what level somebody is at, and you don't you don't know how they learn best in a particular type of subject, right? And I get it. There are people that say they're visual learners. There's other people that are better when they write things down. Um, and honestly, you need to do it all. If you're going to learn something, you need to watch it. If there's a demo of some kind, so you can see it in action, you also need to take notes uh, during the lecture or whatever it is you're watching. And you need to repeat and practice, right? What you learned. So you need to do all three: visual, written, and also practice, right? It's almost like what the learning triangle. I don't know. There's probably some official. I'm sure. I've never studied to be a teacher. Teachers, there's you can get PhD in how to teach, right? And then there's teachers that teach teachers. There's another level on top of that. But for me, when I was working with people, in person, um, I found it important to do all three. I would demo it so they could visually see what was happening, and then I would explain it the best I can, and then the student has to be taking notes and then practice what I just taught them, right? So there's those three things. And once you do all of those things, then you should be able to master whatever craft it is. Some people take longer than I take a long time to master anything. Man, I've been at this for 10 years now, and I'm still like an elementary school compared to a lot of my viewers. A lot of my viewers, a lot of you guys are so good at photography. I'm not even close to your level. You just watch my channel just for that little nugget every now and then, right? It's like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. I get that all the time in the comments. It's like, I knew 99% of everything in that video, but you showed me this one little thing, that I didn't know. Um, and that's more common experience for my viewers than I think most people, at least the ones that leave comments. There might be a lot of beginners that don't leave comments, they just learn. But if you're a beginner, this is your first time hearing my stream or watching any of my videos, uh, I think it's real important you do all of those things. Watch the video, I demo the best I can, take notes, and then practice it. And BK8 Pay, X Media. Okay, you're talking. Okay, sorry. This is in response to. So it's better to use the OX sticky from the Pentax for sensor cleaning. Grabs noise particles neatly, and I use. Okay, little tip there. I'm the worst when it comes. Don't ever ask me how to clean a camera. I'm terrible at it. Uh, the Panasonic system has a similar flaw where if the shutter speed is too slow, the whole EVF screen looks like a PC from 1991 and yeah. Yeah. I think flaw is too strong a word. I think limitation is a better word. There's just limits to what sensors can do. I don't think it's a flaw, so to speak. Uh, if some YouTubers are talking in slow pace, there's these big just play at 1.25 or 1.5 and it's perfect. Yeah. If you're watching this stream, you better be watching at 1.5x if you're watching it after the fact. Um, okay. Actually, I love the VF4 of my EP5, even though I have the G9 and OM1X. I heard that the VF4 works on an older Leica camera that doesn't have an EVF, but it has the hot shoe for it, so you can plug that in. Saw that on one of these videos yesterday. We live in a TikTok generation. Oh, I see. It's part of this statement. It would grow your channel with topic-specific shorts. Yeah, maybe. Like do a 2-minute video. This is how you insert the SD card. 30 seconds. Probably get 1 million views. Because there's people that'll probably buy a camera and they're like, what's an SD card? If they've never used a camera before. I can see that, right? Um, because when you buy a camera, let's say you go to Best Buy, a big box store, right? You buy a camera off the shelf, it doesn't come with an SD card, right? And then people get home and they're like, this thing doesn't work. Yeah, the Pen PL8 was the last one to have that port. I actually have a very rare attachment for it, but you can find the EVFs all day long. I have the microphone adapter for it, the SEMA1. Uh, Nobody else has that. You can't find it. I have one. I could probably sell it for a fortune if there was any demand for it. I don't think anybody would even want it, but I have one. All right. Wow, looks like I'm all caught up here on the chat. That's amazing. Um, okay, so I missed some of it. It says you have the S90, 95, and S100. The S100 is the only one that shoots RAW. Yeah, there's so many versions of the S100, right? I have two of them. Both of these do not shoot. I called this an S100 again. This is an F180. I have this one. This one is really old. This only shoots JPEG. I'm almost 99.9% sure this only shoots JPEG. But uh okay. I guess that's it. Wait. I found that trying to shoot with the lenses like the 75 to 300 over LCD is cumbersome, but with the EVF it's much better. Definitely. Yeah, it's hard to hand hold and you don't get as good a stability like this. So putting it up to your eye and then having your head follow, right? Follow whatever it is you're trying to take a picture of is much better. And David, I've been enjoying your self-port. Oh, thanks. Yeah, there's more to come. I got some gangster pics coming up soon. So I got some more props. Not just this, I got some other stuff that I'm going to be doing. Dude, I'm going to do sort of a film Humphrey Bogart kind of look with this. I should have got a tan, though. I should have got a tan hat for this. But anyway, I'm going to do some more. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you are bored with my self-portraits, but I'm having a good time with them. I'm going to try and I have a lot of B-roll for the self-portrait things, like my Columbo one and my Newsboy Cap one, and I have some B-roll for some other stuff. So I'm going to try and just do a voiceover vlog because you guys know how bad I am with audio stuff, right? So I didn't record any audio on any of my B-roll. It's all so I'm gonna have to voice over everything. Uh, but I did start editing a vlog, and then I got two or three different products I got to review. They're lighting products, which if you're into LED lighting in a studio rather than using flash, you'll find these very good. These are very good products. One of the products I'm going to use is specifically for my noir shoot. Um, and you mentioned the microphone. There were also macro lights for hot shoe port. Yes, I remember that. Small flashes than EVFs. They really should bring it back. Even the XZ2, yeah, the XZ1 and XZ2 had it. I wonder if that will work. That microphone jack would work with that XZ2. That'd be interesting. I'd have to try that. Um, And oh yeah, the Panasonic 2514. That is a sweet, sweet lens. I was shooting with it just yesterday morning with it, or day before. I've been going out like every single day. I'm so tired. Oops, I did that one. Oh, and that's for Ulf. And you also have the Ali 2518 and the 1.2, and I can't decide. Uh, I would say for me, okay, so I have three 25s. I have the 25 1.7 Panasonic, they're plastic fantastic. The 25 1.8 from Olympus, and now the 25 1.4 from Panasonic again. And I think on the EM5 Mark II and the OM1, the Panasonic Leica 1.4 is best. As well as the Panasonic Leica 1.7. It's really good on the OM1 and the EM5 Mark II to some extent. But on the Pen F, the 25 1.8 and your 1.2 are going to be best on the Pen F. Specifically, the 1.8, I think, is the very best lens on the Pen F. I prefer it over the 1.4 on my Pen F for the sheer size, weight, balance, everything. Because the Pen F is not a big camera, so even when I put the 25 1.4 on it, it just feels a little bit hefty. Because I had this lens on my Pen F the other day, and the image quality is fabulous, right? It's that's not the problem. My problem is it just feels a little bit bulky on this camera. And here's my I put the 25 1.8 on here. Oops, take the lens cap off. See, now here's the 25 1.8. And this is with the lens hood on, of course, but this to me works, right? Okay, and then I'll put the Leica back on. I mean, the image quality is really close. It's definitely better on this one. But see, this looks big and bulky to me. Even if I take this, I don't use the lens hood that came with it. I don't like it. But this just looks big and bulky on this camera, right? So if I'm going to use the Pen F, this is the lens I'm going to use. Let me get it. Now it won't focus, right? Okay, there we go. So this I don't know. This works for me. This or the 14 to 42 Pancake. I prefer the manual zoom, but this works. This works really well for me too. So I rarely shoot wide open, but when I do, the 1.8 is fine. But the 1.4, this thing renders colors, and definitely the bokeh is very, very smooth. The bokeh on this, I'd say, is very similar to the Olympus 1.2. You know, that's what I think anyway. But this is perfect on my EM5. I'm not going to dig it up, but you get the idea. So if it were me, that's how I would decide. Please don't get into shorts. I just can't stand them, and I never wash them. They just turn me off. Oh, okay. I won't do shorts for tutorials. I was thinking about, like, when I go out to vlog, maybe I would do a short to say, I'm out on a vlog today. I got this camera and this lens, look for a video later. Maybe I'll do that. Because it would be kind of awkward to do a short 2-minute video, like how to put an SD card in a camera. I don't know. That would be a little bit weird. But most of my audience are not young, right? You're like my age and older, right? Like you're in the 50s and 60s, 70s, 80s. Yeah, it looks good on EP7, definitely. Looks good on the Pen F, the EP7, if you get the silver. This lens is fabulous. It flares. It flares a lot, though, when you got it pointed directly at a light source. So you have to use it creatively in those situations, just like any kind of lens that flares like that. Like this, this pancake lens flares really bad. Uh, so I have to try to use it creatively. You have to stop down to like f16, so the flaring is at least a little bit sharper rather than smeary. On this one, the the flaring is very smeary. It's smeary on this too, but not as bad on this one. And that's one of the things where you have to get to know your lenses, right? You have to understand the characteristics of the lens. Not just is it sharp at f5.6, most of them are, right? But, are they sharp wide open or sharp enough? Or or they just right? Like they're just a little bit soft wide open, which is perfect. What are the characteristics of the bokeh? What's the characteristics of the flaring? Can you use that creatively? Um, and all the other things. And once you kind of get to know your lens, then you can start to use the lenses creatively. Like, is the color rendition a little bit different? They are a little bit different, you know? Um, anyway, oh yeah, yeah, I was just mention that. Like, because like when I'm out in the field and I'm like, I could just use my phone, make a quick 30-second clip and say, I'm out doing a vlog. Look for this video coming soon. And then that'll force me to make one, right? Because if I announce it, I better make it. And I got another announcement I need to make before I go. Um, is The problem now is I don't I don't have any commitment to make any vlogs, right? Because vlogs generally are just more entertainment rather than educational, and that's why I don't feel any pressure to make those kind of videos. Even though I captured all this B-roll, I've deleted so much B-roll and never made a video from them because I just didn't see the point, right? It's just me walking around taking pictures. Not helpful at all. And I have several more hours of B-roll I've been capturing while I go out doing these self-portraits. Nobody will ever know that I captured that B-roll if I don't publish a video, and that's fine by me, right? But at the same time, there's a lot of people that want to see me behind the scenes working a scene and then explaining why did I take this picture, how did I compose this picture, uh, and I don't feel like I'm qualified to give that kind of advice, especially being creative or reason you take a picture. Why did I take this picture? Why did I pick these elements? These kind of things are, I think, very subjective and very personal, right? Because all of the reasons I take a picture at a scene are going to be very different than anyone else is going to take a picture at a scene. Um, and me making a vlog and telling you why I took this picture and what elements I include and why did I compose it this way, I don't know how helpful that is to your own photography, right? Um, so I kind of stick to like, things like press and hold the button here, and then this menu will come up, or press and hold this to activate this. These things are more useful, right, in a practical way because it gets the camera out of the way so you can do your photography. But when you do your photography and you start thinking about compositions and what is your style and what creative choices are you going to make, I don't see how my choices in those areas help you at all. Um, it might be interesting, like Thomas Heaton. His whole channel is devoted to him just telling you why he's taking this picture, right? And he's very entertaining, and I think I'm subscribed. But regardless, I like his videos, but they don't. They honestly, they don't help my photography in any way. They're just purely entertainment value, just like Casey over at Camera Conspiracies, right? I would not make a single buying decision on anything he says. Okay, but I love his channel. I find a very high entertainment value. And I've talked about this before. There's a lot of channels out there that have more entertainment value than they have practical value, and they're just just useless. And also, and the only problem I have with my own channel is I don't, especially in 2023, I don't really have a part one, part two, part three series, right? Like, okay, let's start here. Now let's do this. Now let's do this. So it's not an instructional, it's not like a class where you have a syllabus of chapters and sections and subsections and exercises and homework and tests, right? Uh, I was thinking about trying to go in that direction this year where I'm a little bit where I have a little bit more structure to the material that I put on YouTube. And we'll see. I don't know that, but that takes like a lot of work, right? Because I have to come up with a curriculum, so to speak. And I've done it in the past where I've come up with courses. And I have a couple of those videos on my channel, like aperture and shutter speed and exposure. If you search my channel for those topics, you'll see like these 30-minute lectures where I talk about those things. But overall, as a educator, my channel is very similar to a lot of other people's. There's no organization to it. There's no curriculum. It's like I have a problem, I need to solve it. And that's what my channel is kind of about. Other than these live streams where I just jibber jabber for 2 hours about nothing, really. Um, but speaking of which, I'm doing the sixth annual Micro Four Thirds meetup, but it's gotten so big, I had to split it into two parts. I could really split it into three or four parts because there's so many people on YouTube that are doing great things with Micro Four Thirds cameras that uh, I could do this year long, week after week, interviewing or having as guests talking about Micro Four Thirds photography as a photographer's tool. But I have two set up. So if you go to my channel and look in the live section, I've posted links to it for January 28th and February 4th. So that's my big announcement. Mark your calendars for January 28th and February 4th. And I'm going to post more details about it in the community section. And then that'll give you an opportunity to ask questions there and for me to help shape the content or the sort of the flow of those particular streams that I'm going to be holding. So I'm really excited. I'm going to have the usual suspects, Maddie, Peter, Robin, Jimmy, Emily, from Micro Four Nerds, Emily Talpin. I'm going to have her back again. I'm also going to have a new lady named Marlene. She's a Panasonic Lumix shooter. Brian, I don't know his last name, but from that Micro Four Thirds guy. And then also a fan favorite is Thomas Eisel, right? I'm gonna have Thomas Eisel on, and also Ben Chappelle, right? I had him on 2 years ago. I somehow I missed him last year, but yeah, 2 years ago. So Ben Chappell. Uh, so it's a great lineup this year, and I'm also gonna have after those 2 days, February 4th, hopefully again in February, I'm gonna have some more people on, right? From other channels, specifically Lee Hoy with Emily Talpin. And I may grab one more person and have a smaller group, like three of us, talking about wildlife on our Micro Four Thirds cameras. So I'd like to get maybe a Panasonic type person that does wildlife. It might be Marlene again, because she does a lot of birding with her Panasonics. But yeah, so definitely those things are coming, so look forward to that, and share the link with everyone so that get the word. Help me get the word out so we have a big showing, because I want to support the Micro Four Thirds community as much as possible because it is such a great system, and the limitations are minimal, right? Honestly, the minute the limitations, what people perceive as limitations, really, because don't let your gear hold you back from your photography. And I had a great analogy before I started the stream. I was going to talk about this. Um, Now I can't remember it. But when it comes to your photography, your creativity, um, never let gear hold you back. And Micro Four Thirds are certainly far from being, you know, a useless tool in photography, right? As some might make you believe. Your camera is the least important thing in your photography. The most important thing is your creative choices, right? And and maybe even above all of that, just enjoying the journey. Just go out and shutter therapy, like Robin always says. Just go out and enjoy photography and capture your life, the things around you that are happening in your life, and keep those memories forever. Because that was the reason I got into photography. Is I regretted not capturing more memories from before that I really cherish now and miss. Um, you know, I talk about my dogs a lot. That's why I got into photography. I miss not having photos of some of my, when I used to have my two very first dogs. And I didn't want to miss that opportunity when I got my next dog. So when I got Riley, I bought a camera, right? And that's how I got into photography 10 years ago. And Riley has since passed. He died young. But I'm so grateful I got into photography and was able to capture memories of him. And then whenever I go to Christmas, Thanksgiving, and family, I cherish the photography, the images that I captured during those moments in my life. Um, and cell phone pictures just ain't gonna cut it for me. Okay. I know cell phone pictures are perfect for those kinds of things where you capture. Cell phones are great for capturing, like you have a little kid and you want to capture that spontaneous moment, that snapshot of something funny they're doing, right? Like they just ate, they just put on their lipstick all over their face, things like that, right? But when you want to really capture memories of your past, cell phone ain't going to cut it and you're going to regret it. Okay. Learn photography and get a camera that's certainly more capable, at the very least, a bridge camera, but try to get, any interchangeable lens camera system and capture those things in your life that are important to you now, because you're going to forget later. Trust me, I bet there's a lot of things in my life that were very special to me and I've totally forgotten about because I never took a picture of it. I never wrote it down. Those kind of things, and then one day I'm going to sit back and I'm going to remember something and how great that was, and I'm going to say, "Man, I wish I had a picture." You know. So anyhow, yeah, just don't worry about the gear. Just enjoy all of that. Capture your memory and get a decent camera because you'll regret it if you don't. Don't use your cell phone for important things. The cell phone is for the snapshots of, you know, your dog, you know, I don't know, just stupid things your dog does. Like some people, they like Ellie would be laying down in this weird position, putting her paws over her eyes a certain way. I got to take a picture right there, and I have my cell phone on me. But no, those are fun to have. But the pictures I really cherish are the ones that I take out my real camera and take my time to get to capture special times and things. Like when we go out on walks together, I always bring my camera so that I can get a good picture of us on the walk, or maybe something she's doing while while we're on the walk, etc. So anyhow, you guys, that is all I have for today. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. It's great to see everyone here, and I will see you guys again next week, God willing. Have a good week and go out and take some pictures of those special moments and things in your life.